Rachel Morgan pushed the X-ray machine down the hospital corridor. Her scrubs faded from too many washes, her name badge identifying her as a radiology technician. Third shift, lowest seniority, the invisible worker who took portable X-rays while the rest of the hospital slept. She'd been doing this job for 18 months, and most staff couldn't pick her out of a lineup. She was just Rachel, quiet and efficient, always wearing long sleeves, even in summer, always keeping to herself. The other techs gossiped during breaks about their weekends, their families, their dreams. Rachel just listened and smiled, never sharing, never revealing the reason she startled at loud noises or why her hands sometimes shook when she had to work in the trauma bay. If you're watching this story unfold, wondering what shadows hide beneath those long sleeves and behind those careful smiles, stay with me. Because in the next few minutes, those shadows will step into the light in a way no one could have predicted. They didn't know that 5 years ago, Rachel had been Sergeant Rachel Morgan, combat medic with the 75th Ranger Regiment. They didn't know about the firefight in Mosul, about the 13 hours she'd kept 5 Rangers alive in a bombed-out building while waiting for extraction, about the shrapnel that had torn through her shoulder, or about the words her team had scratched into her arm with a knife when she started to fade from blood loss, a promise to keep her fighting. Medic 7, her calcine, her identity, her burden. She'd left the Army with a purple heart and demons that wouldn't let her sleep. The VA psychiatrist said she needed low-stress work, something far removed from life-and-death decisions. Radiology seemed perfect, safe, predictable. Just images on screens, no bleeding, no screaming, no dying. Rachel could hide there, and for 18 months she had. Tonight was supposed to be routine. Rachel was finishing up in the ER when the ambulance bay exploded with activity. Multiple vehicles, sirens wailing, radios crackling. A mass casualty event, a tour bus that had rolled on the interstate. The night shift trauma team was overwhelmed within minutes. "We need everyone," the UR supervisor shouted. "I don't care what department you're from. If you have hands, get in here." Rachel pressed herself against the wall as gurneys flooded past, but her eyes were already doing what they'd been trained to do, triaging green, yellow, red, black. Her combat medic brain never stopped working, even when she desperately wanted it to. She saw the chaos, saw the inexperienced residents struggling, saw the critical mistakes about to happen. Then she heard it, a voice from the far trauma bay, young and terrified. "He's crashing. I can't get the airway. Someone help me." Rachel's feet moved before her mind could stop them. She pushed through the crowd and saw a resident frozen over a patient with severe facial trauma, the airway kit trembling in his hands. The monitor was screaming. The patient was turning blue. 30 seconds, maybe less. "Move," Rachel heard herself say, her voice carrying a command that had once been her entire identity. "Who are you?" the resident stammered. Rachel didn't answer. She was already at the patient's head, her hands moving with the muscle memory of 100 field procedures. Her sleeve rode up as she worked, exposing her forearm. One of the nurses gasped. "Medic 7, the nurse read aloud. That's a Ranger calcine." And here's where Rachel faced the choice that would define everything. Would she retreat back into her safe shadows, or would she step into the fire one more time? If you understand what it means to face the parts of yourself you've tried to bury, hit that like button because you know this moment changes everything. Rachel's training overrode her fear. She performed a surgical cricothyrotomy with a precision that made the trauma team fall silent. Within 90 seconds, the patient was breathing. The monitor's alarm silenced. Life where there had been death? "Where did you learn that?" the attending physician demanded, rushing over Mosul Kandahar, Helmand province, Rachel said quietly, her hands still steady on the patient, her sleeves still rolled up, her past exposed. 73 combat missions as a Ranger medic. I did this procedure 17 times in conditions that would make this hospital look like a spa. The ER supervisor grabbed Rachel's arm, staring at the scarred letters. "You're Medic 7. The Medic 7. We studied your case in advanced trauma training. You kept 5 men alive for 13 hours with almost nothing. You're a legend." Rachel pulled her arm away, shame and pride warring in her chest. "I'm a radiology tech who takes X-rays at 3 in the morning. That other person doesn't exist anymore, doesn't she?" the attending asks gently, gesturing to the now stable patient. "Because she just showed up when we needed her most." For the next 4 hours, Rachel couldn't hide anymore. The mass casualty event overwhelmed every available resource. and the staff kept pulling her into critical situations. Each time, her training took over. Each time, she saved a life. Each time, a piece of the person she'd tried to bury clawed its way back to the surface. As dawn broke and the last patient was stabilized, Rachel sat in the supply closet where she used to hide during her breaks. The ER supervisor found her there, exhausted and shaking. "I tried to run from it," Rachel whispered. "I thought I could be someone else. Someone who didn't see friends die. Someone who didn't have to make impossible choices. Someone normal." The supervisor sat beside her. "Rachel, normal is overrated. Necessary isn't. Do you know how many people are alive right now because you stopped hiding for one night?" 14, Rachel said automatically, because she'd counted every single one. 14 people who would have died if I'd stayed invisible. 3 weeks later, Rachel walked into the ER wearing different scrubs, a new badge that read Emergency Department Trauma Specialist. The director of emergency medicine had fast-tracked her nursing degree completion and hired her on the spot. Her sleeve was rolled up, Medic 7, visible to everyone, no longer a secret, but a promise. The young resident she'd saved from his first major mistake approached her nervously. "I wanted to thank you for that night, and to say I'm sorry you had to relive your trauma to save us." Rachel touched the scarred letters on her arm. "You know what I realized? This isn't trauma. This is purpose. I was never running from who I was. I was running from who I thought I should be. Turns out, they needed Medic 7 all along. She just needed to be ready to answer the call." If this story reminded you that the parts of yourself you try to hide might be exactly what the world needs most, share it with someone who's struggling to embrace their own strength. Drop a comment about a time you stopped running from your past and found your purpose instead. And subscribe, because stories like Rachel's teach us that healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about accepting who you've always been and finding the courage to let that person save lives again. Your scars aren't weaknesses. They're proof you survived something that would have broken others. And sometimes they're exactly what makes you extraordinary.